Okay, let's discuss sinking funds. So a sinking fund is a term for a type of savings account. So picture the savings account, the term savings account, as a broad general term. A sinking fund sits within a savings account. Basically, what a sinking fund is when you dedicate an account, an account, so one account, to a specific thing. For example, we talked a little bit in class about online bank accounts and how those banks without brick and mortar locations are able to provide higher interest rates on their savings because they have lower overhead. So what I did is I opened up one of those accounts, and there's several of them now. They've become more and more popular over the past few years. I opened one about 6 years ago when they first came out, um, and the interest rate at that time was 1.75%, which was unheard of for a savings account. Since the recession and the printing of fiat money, fiat meaning money that has no backing, just out of thin air, that is actually in the reduction of interest rates as a consequence of that fiat money being printing. So when just as a side note, when the Fed prints money um, out of thin air, fiat money, it can possibly cause inflation. And so to fight inflation, they drop the interest rate benchmark. And a consequence of dropping the interest rates might be good for the consumer on some things like mortgages. I'm sure you've heard in the news that mortgage rates have dropped significantly. In fact, they've been at all-time lows within the last 2 months, below 3%, which is unprecedented. That's good for consumers in that sense, but when it comes to savings accounts and other things like that, it's like CDs, we mentioned CDs before, money market accounts, treasuries, it drops those interest rates too, so you make less money on your deposits. So there's good and bad to interest rates dropping. And so what's done for those bank accounts is, say my bank account at 1.75% has now dropped to below 1%. So I think it's now at like 0.7, I think was what I mentioned in class earlier today. Um, so, but that's ultimately what a sinking fund is where you take money and you put it into an account with no intention of withdrawing that money until you have the amount you need. And so what I did, going back to that example of my bank account, I did it for Christmas. So I created a sinking fund for Christmas expenses. And so throughout the year, each paycheck, I had a allotted amount that I would withdraw from my paycheck and I would put into that Christmas sinking fund. It was just a savings account dedicated strictly for Christmas. And so let's do a theoretical example. I do not spend $50,000 a year on Christmas, but let's say this isn't by any means accurate, but let's say I do $5,000. Let's do this. So let's figure out the future value. Say I want $5,000 by the end of the year. And I start out with 0 as my present value. Let's see, what do we need to figure what is my payment that I need to do. So it's just 1 year, but it's compounded monthly. And let's do my interest rate. So let's actually do it at the interest rate that it's currently at right now, 0.7. Nope, I don't want that. There we go. So that's not right either. 0.7. Okay, that's what it's at. And we want to figure how much I need to put in the bank each month for an entire year to get to the 5,000 by the end of the year. So let's go like this. Let's hit PMT, and it's going to run us through. So rate, we got this. That's 0.7 a year, but remember, we're dealing with it being compounded monthly, okay? Now we have this. We also have to multiply that by 12, which will just be 12. Our present value is 0, and our future value is 5,000 and it's compounded at the end of each period, and we're going to go like this. So we're going to figure out our payment for our sinking fund. We're going to need to put in $415, so that's what's coming out of our pocket every month to get that. That's one way to back into the payment of a sinking fund. So if you have any questions, let me know. What I'll do now, just in the following video, is talk about how we do these on a financial calculator.